Hey everyone, tonight we're stepping back about 150 years to a world where the dawn doesn't bring hope, but another grinding day of survival. We're slipping into the worn boots of a textile factory worker in industrial Manchester, England, around 1870. Fair warning, this day won't be easy. There's no comfort here, no respite, just the relentless rhythm of machines and the desperate struggle to make it through another shift without losing a finger, or worse. So before we begin, if you enjoy this type of content, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And while you're at it, drop your city and local time in the comments below. It's always fascinating to see where you're all watching from, whether you're in Tokyo at noon or Toronto at midnight. Now, settle in. Maybe wrap yourself in something warm, because where we're going, the cold seeps into everything. Let's ease into tonight's journey together. The darkness before dawn in Manchester carries a particular quality in 1870, a thickness you can almost taste. It's not just the absence of light, but a presence all its own, a soup of coal smoke, factory emissions, and the collective exhalation of thousands crammed into spaces meant for hundreds. The air itself seems to have weight, pressing down on the rows of back-to-back houses that line the narrow streets like crooked teeth in a beggar's mouth. These streets don't meander pleasantly like country lanes. They cut straight and merciless through neighborhoods where daylight is a stranger and fresh air is a distant memory from childhood stories about farms that might as well be fairy kingdoms for all the relevance they hold now. Inside one of these houses, in a room barely large enough for the bodies it contains, you stir on a thin straw mattress that's seen better years. Actually, it's never seen better years. The mattress is older than you are, handed down through tenants like some grim inheritance, its fabric stained with the sweat and suffering of workers who came before. The room measures perhaps 10 feet by 12, and in this space, your entire family exists. Your parents occupy the single bed against one wall, a rickety wooden frame that creaks with every movement. You share the floor with your siblings, 3 of you arranged like puzzle pieces on whatever bedding could be cobbled together. Old coats serve as blankets. The mattress you're on is actually 2 burlap sacks, stuffed with straw that's mostly turned to dust. When you shift, tiny particles rise into the air, and you've learned not to breathe deeply in these moments. The walls are damp. They're always damp. A single brick thick separates you from the family on the other side, and you can hear them too. The coughs and murmurs that prove you're never truly alone in this place. The dampness isn't just moisture. It's a living thing that creeps across the plaster, leaving dark blooms of mold that your mother scrapes away with a knife when she has the energy, which isn't often. The ceiling is low, and if your father stood in the center of the room with his arm raised, he could easily touch the beams. Not that he does. Every movement costs energy, and energy must be hoarded like the precious few pennies in the cracked jar on the mantel. Outside, you hear it before you fully wake, the tap-tap-tap of wood on glass. Mrs. Hodges is making her rounds. She's the knocker-upper for this row of houses, a widow in her 60s who supplements her factory cleaning wages by waking workers for 6 pence per week. She carries a long bamboo pole, and she knows exactly which window belongs to which shift. The tapping is rhythmic, insistent, a sound that's haunted your dreams more times than you can count. Tap, tap, tap. 3 raps, a pause, then 3 more. She won't leave until she sees movement, until a curtain shifts or a face appears, bleary and resentful, at the window. This is her insurance policy, her guarantee that she's earned her 6 pence. Workers who oversleep lose wages. Lost wages mean rent unpaid. Unpaid rent means eviction. And eviction means the workhouse, which everyone knows is just a slower way of dying. Your mother is already awake. She's always awake before the knocker-upper arrives, some internal mechanism more reliable than any mechanical clock, driving her from whatever fitful sleep she managed. You hear her moving in the darkness, the whisper of fabric as she pulls on her dress. The same dress she wears every day because she only owns 2, and the other is worse. There's no fire in the grate yet. Lighting a fire costs coal, and coal costs money, and money is measured out in half pennies with the precision of a pharmacist measuring arsenic. The fire will be lit later when your father returns from his shift, if he returns in a condition to do anything but collapse. He works the night shift at the iron foundry, and the overlap between your departures and his arrivals has been reduced to a brief crossing of paths, a transaction of information about whether there's bread and whether anyone's coughing blood. You swing your legs off the mattress, and the cold hits immediately. It's April, so it could be worse. In January, ice forms on the inside of the window, delicate ferns of frost that would be beautiful if they weren't a reminder of how thin the barrier is between you and the elements. Your feet find the floor, wooden boards so worn that splinters are a constant hazard. You've learned to walk carefully, to know which spots are safe. Your younger brother, Thomas, still bears a scar on his heel from a particularly nasty splinter that got infected last winter. Your mother treated it with bread poultice and prayer, the only medicines available, and by some miracle it healed without claiming his foot or his life. The room's single window looks out onto a courtyard, though calling it a courtyard is generous. It's a space perhaps 15 feet across, hemmed in on all sides by the backs of other houses. A communal privy squats in one corner, shared by 32 families. You can smell it from here, and it hasn't been cleaned in weeks. The night soil men come monthly if you're lucky, hauling away the accumulated waste in buckets for 6 pence per load. When they're late, which is often, the courtyard becomes a hazard zone, a place you cross quickly with a handkerchief pressed to your face. Disease loves these courtyards. Cholera swept through 3 years ago, claiming your youngest sister. Typhoid visits regularly, and tuberculosis has taken up permanent residence, coughing through the walls at all hours. Your mother lights a single candle, a precious tallow candle that smells of rendered fat and produces more smoke than illumination. But it's enough. Enough to see her face, worn far beyond her 32 years, the lines around her eyes and mouth carved deep by worry and exhaustion. She was pretty once. You've seen the tintype, a wedding portrait where she and your father looked young and hopeful, as if the world might offer something beyond survival. That world, if it ever existed, is long gone. Now she moves with the efficiency of someone who's learned that wasted motion is wasted energy, and energy is the only currency that truly matters. She hands you a cup of water, lukewarm and slightly cloudy, because the pump in the courtyard draws from a well that's probably contaminated by the privy leakage. But you drink anyway because you have no choice. Your throat is already dry from breathing the dust-laden air all night. Particles of cotton lint and coal smoke that settle in your lungs like snow that never melts. All the factory workers have the same cough, a distinctive barking sound that marks you as clearly as the pallor of your skin or the particular slump of your shoulders. The doctors have names for the ailments that plague mill workers. They talk about brown lung and grinders consumption, about mule spinners' cancer, and a dozen other conditions that sound clinical and remote until they're eating away at your insides. Your breakfast is already prepared, if the word prepared can apply to what's on offer. A chunk of bread, dark and coarse, the kind that's mostly bran and sawdust filler with just enough flour to hold it together. The loaf costs 4 pence, a quarter of your weekly wage, and it has to stretch across multiple meals for multiple people. Your piece is perhaps 2 inches square, and you chew it slowly, trying to extract whatever nutrition it contains. There's no butter. There hasn't been butter in months. Sometimes, on paydays, there might be a scraping of dripping, the fat saved from a bit of bacon, but today isn't payday. Beside the bread sits a small piece of cheese, hard and slightly moldy around the edges. Your mother has cut away the worst of the mold, and what remains is still edible, technically. It's protein, and protein is precious. Thomas is awake now, rubbing his eyes with fists that are too small for the work they'll do today. He's 9 years old and has been working in the mill for a year since he grew tall enough to reach the machinery. His job is to crawl beneath the power looms while they're running, collecting the cotton waste that accumulates beneath the moving parts. It's dangerous work. Every few months, a child gets caught in the machinery, pulled into gears, or crushed beneath weights. The newspapers sometimes report these accidents, but only when multiple children die at once. A single child crushed isn't news. It's overhead, an acceptable cost of production, a statistic that factory owners add to their ledgers without emotion. Your sister Mary is 13 and works in the spinning room. Her hands are quick, which is why the overlooker assigned her to one of the faster machines. Speed means more production, and more production means the factory owners make more profit, though none of that additional profit trickles down to Mary's wages. She earns 3 shillings per week, barely half what an adult man would make for the same work. The logic is simple and brutal. Women and children are paid less because they can be, because they have no power to demand otherwise, because the line of desperate workers waiting for any job stretches around the block and down the street. You pull on your clothes in the candlelight, the same clothes you wore yesterday and the day before. Washing them is a luxury reserved for Sunday, and even then it's a production that requires water to be hauled from the courtyard pump, heated over a fire you can barely afford to light, and soap that costs money you don't have. The result is that everyone smells, a communal reek of sweat and machine oil, and the particular mustiness that comes from wearing damp wool in damp rooms. You've stopped noticing it on yourself, but you can smell it on others, and you know they smell it on you. Your trousers are patched at the knees, the patches themselves patched. A history of repairs that tells the story of how long you've been making do. Your shirt is thin cotton, worn soft, not from quality but from age and friction. In winter, you'd layer more shirts, 3 or 4 if you could manage, creating insulation through thickness, since the fabric itself provides none. But it's April, so 2 shirts will suffice. Your boots are the most valuable thing you own, more valuable than anything in this room except perhaps the bed frame. They cost 7 shillings, a month's wages, saved copper by copper, and they're already showing wear. When they fail completely, you'll have to resort to the wooden clogs that most workers wear, clogs that provide no warmth, no comfort, and no protection from the factory floor's hazards. Your mother packs the tin pail that will serve as your lunch, though lunch is an ambitious term for what it contains. More bread, a bit of the cheese, an onion if you're lucky. The pail is dented and battered, another inherited object that's passed through multiple owners. It has a lid that doesn't quite fit anymore, but it's good enough to keep the rats away during your break, assuming you get a break. Some days the machinery can't stop, and you'll eat standing up, shoving food into your mouth with hands black from machine oil, adding that particular flavor to everything that touches your lips. The candle is snuffed. Every moment it burns is money literally going up in smoke. The darkness rushes back in, and you navigate by memory, and the faint glow of gaslight that filters through the window from a lamp in the courtyard. Your father still hasn't returned from his shift. This is becoming more common. The foundry has been running extra hours, trying to fill an order for railway parts, and the men are working 14, sometimes 16-hour shifts. Your mother's face shows the worry she won't voice. Every extra hour he works is another hour he might make a mistake. And mistakes in an iron foundry don't result in stern warnings. They result in molten metal and screaming, and the kind of burns that steal pieces of a man bit by bit. You step out into the courtyard, and the cold air is actually a relief after the stuffiness of the room. For just a moment, you can breathe something that feels almost fresh, though even here the coal smoke hangs heavy, turning the pre-dawn air into a gray soup that tastes of sulfur and industry. The privy looms in the corner, and you make the necessary pilgrimage, trying not to breathe through your nose, trying not to think about the diseases that breed in such places. There's no paper. There's never paper. You make do with whatever scraps you can find, and you try not to dwell on how low humanity can be reduced, how far from dignity. Other workers are emerging from other doors, shadows moving in the darkness, a silent procession of the condemned heading toward their daily sentence. No one speaks much. What is there to say? The work awaits, the same work as yesterday, the same work as tomorrow, stretching out in an unbroken chain that ends only in injury, illness, or death. You join the flow, your tin pail clutched in one hand, your other hand shoved deep in your pocket where the cold can't quite reach your fingers. You'll need those fingers today. You'll need them to be nimble and quick, because the machinery doesn't care about cold or stiffness, and a moment's hesitation can cost you everything. The street is narrow, barely wide enough for two people to pass abreast, and the houses lean in from both sides like they're trying to meet in the middle. The bricks are blackened with soot, the same soot that coats your lungs, that settles on every surface, that turns the whole city into a monument to industry's triumph and humanity's subjugation. The cobblestones are slick with something you don't want to identify, and you step carefully, avoiding the worst of the puddles that gather in the low spots. Rain fell yesterday, and the rain in Manchester doesn't wash things clean. It just redistributes the filth, turning it into a paste that coats everything. More workers join the procession. You recognize faces without knowing names. That's the factory way. You work beside people for months or years without learning their stories, without developing friendships, because friendship requires energy and the will to invest in a future that might include something beyond this moment. The factory takes everything. It takes your time, your health, your youth, your hope. Friendship feels like a luxury, like butter or fresh bread, or the idea that tomorrow might be better than today. The factory whistle cuts through the morning, a sound so loud it seems to shake the very air, and everyone's pace quickens. The whistle is the voice of God in this world, absolute and unforgiving. It divides time into before and after, into work and not work. If you're not through the factory gates when that whistle stops, you're not working today. And not working means no wages. No wages means explaining to your mother why there won't be bread tomorrow. So you walk faster, the cold air burning your lungs, your empty stomach twisting, your boots slapping against cobblestones in rhythm with 100 other boots, all of you racing toward the same destination, the same fate. The factory looms ahead, a massive brick edifice that blocks out the stars, assuming there are stars behind the smoke. Its windows glow with gaslight, 100 eyes staring out at the approaching workers. The building itself seems alive, seems to breathe, the rhythm of the steam engines providing a pulse that you can feel through the ground. This is where your day truly begins, in the shadow of this monument to progress, where human beings become extensions of machines, where life is measured in yards of cloth produced and seconds saved, where every moment is accounted for and found wanting. The gates stand open like a mouth, and you pass through, leaving behind the cold morning air and whatever small freedoms the night afforded. Inside is heat and noise and danger. Inside is the world that will consume the next 12 or 14 hours. Inside is where childhood ends and the brutal arithmetic of survival takes over. You've made this journey 1,000 times before. You'll make it 1,000 times again, until your body fails, or the machines claim you, or some small mercy grants you an escape. But not today. Today, you clock in, you take your position, and you begin again. The factory entrance is chaos rendered into barely controlled movement, a river of human beings flowing through gates that seem too narrow for the flood. You're swept along in the current, your tin pail clutched close to prevent it being knocked from your grip. The man beside you has only 3 fingers on his left hand. You've never asked what happened to the other 2, but you can guess. The machines are hungry, and they feast on the flesh of the inattentive, the tired, the unlucky. His stumps have healed into thick, knotted scars, and he uses them with surprising dexterity, pressing cloth into position, operating levers, his body having adapted to its new limitations with the same grim pragmatism that governs all aspects of life here. The timekeeper's station stands just inside the gate, a small wooden booth where Mr. Griggs presides over the record of your existence. He's a thin man with spectacles that sit crooked on his nose. and he wields his ledger like a magistrate, wielding the power of life and death. In a sense, he does. He records when you arrive, and if you're late, he notes that too. 3 late arrivals in a month means dock pay. 5 means dismissal. The rules are posted on the wall behind him, though half the workers can't read them. Not that literacy matters. The rules are simple enough. Be on time, work fast, don't complain, don't steal, don't organize. Break any of these, and there are 50 people outside the gate who would step over your corpse to take your position. You shuffle forward in the line, waiting your turn. The woman ahead of you is coughing, that deep, wet cough that speaks of lungs filling with fluid. She's worked in the cotton mill for 20 years, breathing the lint-filled air until her lungs are more cotton than flesh. She'll be dead within the year, probably sooner, but she keeps coming because the alternative is starvation. There's no pension, no retirement plan, no gentle sunset for workers whose bodies can no longer keep pace. When you can't work, you die. It's that simple. You reach the window. Griggs looks at you without recognition, though you've stood before him every workday for 3 years. You're not a person to him, just a number in his ledger, a line item in the factory's accounting. He notes your arrival time, 7 minutes before the final whistle. Acceptable. If you'd been even 5 minutes later, it would have been noted as tardiness, regardless of the fact that you left your home in darkness, walked through streets where danger lurks in every shadow, pushed through crowds that could have easily delayed you. None of that matters. Only the time matters. Only the production matters. The factory floor opens before you like a vision of industrial hell. The space is vast, a cathedral dedicated to the worship of production, its ceiling lost in the shadows above where the gaslight doesn't reach. Rows of power looms stretch into the distance, each one a complex assemblage of metal and leather and wood, each one capable of weaving cloth at speeds that would have seemed miraculous to weavers of earlier generations. But that speed comes at a cost. The looms are loud, not just loud, but deafening. A cacophony of metallic clanking and whirring and the constant rhythmic slam of shuttles being thrown back and forth. The sound is physical. It enters through your ears and vibrates in your chest. It makes your teeth ache and your head pound. Communication on the factory floor is nearly impossible. Oh, people try. They've developed a crude form of sign language, pointing and gesturing and mouthing words that can sometimes be understood through context and desperation. But mostly, you work in isolation, surrounded by people, yet utterly alone. Each person locked inside their own head, with only the machines for company. Older workers suffer from hearing loss, their eardrums damaged by years of exposure to noise levels that would make modern safety inspectors weep. Some have gone almost completely deaf, reading lips when necessary, and relying on vibrations felt through the floor to tell them when the machines change rhythm or something goes wrong. The air itself is visible, thick with cotton lint that floats like snow in a blizzard. This isn't the romantic snow of Christmas cards. This is lung-destroying, disease-carrying particulate matter that you breathe with every inhalation. Your body tries to expel it. That's what the coughing is, your lungs' desperate attempt to clear themselves of the foreign material. But you're breathing it in faster than you can cough it out. And over time, over years, it accumulates. It coats the delicate tissues of your lungs, reducing their capacity, making every breath a little harder, slowly suffocating you from the inside, even as you continue to live and work and pretend that tomorrow will come. The heat is tremendous. The combination of steam engines, gas lamps, and hundreds of human bodies packed into an enclosed space creates an environment that's stifling even in April. In summer, workers faint regularly, dropping where they stand, dragged aside so they don't interfere with production, revived with buckets of water if they're lucky, replaced if they're not. The windows, what few there are, don't open. Fresh air would disturb the carefully controlled humidity needed to keep the cotton fibers pliable. So you sweat, the moisture soaking through your shirt, and that moisture makes the lint stick to your skin, coating you in a fine white dust that makes you look like a ghost of yourself. Your machine awaits, the same machine you've operated for 3 years, the same collection of moving parts and potential hazards that could kill you if you let your attention wander for even a moment. It's a power loom, driven by belts that connect to the main drive shaft that runs the length of the building. The belts move constantly, loops of leather rotating at speeds that can snatch clothing, hair, anything loose and pull it into the machinery. You've seen it happen. Everyone's seen it happen. Last month, a woman's apron got caught. She was dragged into the mechanism before anyone could stop the machine, and when they finally got her free, her arm was mangled beyond saving. The factory surgeon, such as he was, amputated at the shoulder. She was given a week to recover, no wages during that time, and then she was dismissed because a one-armed woman can't operate a loom. You take your position at your machine, and muscle memory takes over. Your hands move to the correct positions, your feet find the pedals, your eyes scan the loom, checking for issues that might have developed overnight. The cloth from yesterday's work is still on the beam, waiting to be continued. You check the thread tension, adjust the shuttle, make the small preparations that might prevent a jam or a break later. Prevention is everything. A jammed machine means lost production, and lost production means the overlooker's wrath and possibly docked pay. The overlooker is Mr. Crowther, a thick-set man with a face like granite and a strap hanging from his belt. The strap is leather, about 3 feet long and an inch wide, and he uses it to maintain discipline. Children get struck most often, but adults aren't immune. Caught talking when you should be working, strap moving too slow, strap questioning an order, strap. The factory owners claim the discipline is necessary to maintain order, to ensure productivity. What it really ensures is fear, and fear is the most efficient management tool ever devised. Crowther prowls between the machines like a wolf among sheep, his eyes scanning for infractions, for weakness, for any excuse to assert his authority. He was a worker once, operated a loom just like yours, but he was promoted after he turned in 3 men who were trying to organize a union. In the factory hierarchy, betrayal is rewarded, loyalty to your fellow workers is punished. Crowther understands this perfectly. He's chosen his side, and that side comes with an extra 2 shillings per week and the satisfaction of wielding power over people who used to be his equals. The final whistle blows, and in perfect synchronization, every loom in the factory roars to life. The sound increases exponentially, individual machines joining into a collective roar that drowns out thought itself. Your hands move automatically, guiding the shuttle, watching for breaks in the thread, maintaining the rhythm that's been beaten into your muscles through repetition. This is what your life has become, a series of repeated motions performed in noise and heat and danger, hour after hour, day after day, until the movements haunt your dreams and your hands continue the motions, even in sleep. The work is monotonous but demanding. You can't let your attention drift because the machines don't forgive inattention. A broken thread must be repaired immediately. A jammed shuttle must be cleared before the loom tears itself apart. And always, always, you must watch your hands, keep them clear of the moving parts, maintain awareness of your position relative to the machinery. The loom doesn't care if you're tired or distracted or thinking about your family or your empty stomach. The loom only knows motion, only understands cloth production, and it will consume you as readily as it consumes the cotton fed into its hungry maw. An hour passes. You know this not from any clock, but from the gradual lightning visible through the high windows. Dawn has broken outside, the sun rising on a world that feels impossibly distant from this factory floor. Out there, somewhere, people are eating breakfast at leisurely pace, are planning their days with some degree of agency, are living lives that include choices and comforts you can barely imagine. Here, your world has narrowed to the 3 feet of space around your machine, to the immediate and constant demands of cloth production, to the simple goal of surviving until the lunch break. Around you, the other workers are similarly engaged. each person locked into their own private struggle with their assigned machine. You catch glimpses of faces when you glance up briefly during thread repairs, faces that are uniformly pale and drawn, marked by exhaustion that sleep never quite banishes. These are young people mostly, the factory-preferring workers whose bodies haven't yet been completely broken down. But they look old, worn, as if the factory is consuming them from the inside, burning through their youth like the furnaces burn through coal. Thomas is somewhere in here, crawling beneath the looms, his small body perfectly sized for the dangerous work of collecting waste cotton while the machines operate above him. You try not to think about it too much. Try not to imagine what would happen if he miscalculated, if his shirt caught on something, if the loom operator didn't see him beneath the machinery. Other boys have died doing this work, crushed or caught, or simply unlucky. But Thomas needs to work, needs to contribute the 2 shillings weekly that might mean the difference between rent paid and eviction. So you don't think about it. You can't afford to think about it. You just work and hope, and try to believe that tonight you'll all be together again in that damp room, alive if not well. Mary is in the spinning room, a separate section of the factory where the temperature is kept even higher to maintain proper fiber conditions. The spinning room is its own kind of hell, temperatures regularly exceeding 100 degrees, girls and women working in shifts because the conditions are so brutal that human bodies simply can't maintain the pace for a full day. Mary will work 6 hours, break for 30 minutes, then work another 6. She's young enough that her body recovers, mostly, though she's developed a heat rash that covers her arms and neck, angry red welts that itch constantly but can't be scratched because her hands must stay on the machinery. An accident occurs 2 rows over. You hear the change in the machinery sound first, a grinding shriek that cuts through even the general din, and then someone shouting though you can't make out words. Workers near the problem step back, giving space, and you catch a glimpse of red, of torn flesh, of something gone terribly wrong. The machines don't stop. Production can't halt for one person's misfortune. The injured worker, a man you recognize but whose name you don't know, is dragged clear of the machinery by 2 others. He's clutching his hand, blood streaming between his fingers, and his face has gone the particular shade of gray that comes with shock and pain. Crowther appears with surprising speed, assesses the situation with the cold calculation of a bookkeeper tallying losses. "Get him to the surgery," he orders, and 2 workers haul the injured man toward the door. He'll be taken to a small room where a man who's not quite a doctor but who's seen enough injuries to handle most of them will do what he can. If the damage is severe enough, he'll amputate. If it's not, he'll bandage and send the worker back out. There's no anesthetic, no real pain management, beyond perhaps a leather strap to bite down on. You work through the pain, or you don't work at all. The blood is still on the floor, a dark stain spreading across worn boards, and someone will clean it eventually, but not now. Now, production must continue. The injured man's machine sits idle, a gap in the rows that represents lost productivity, lost profit. By tomorrow, someone new will be operating that loom, the position filled before the previous operator's blood has dried. That's the bargain here. Lives are cheap, labor is abundant, and the machines must never stop. Your stomach is growling, a constant gnawing sensation that's become so familiar you almost don't notice it anymore. The breakfast bread has long since been processed and found wanting, your body demanding more fuel than was provided. But there's nothing to be done about it. The lunch break is still hours away, and even then the portions will be inadequate. You've learned to ignore hunger, to push it down along with all the other discomforts and indignities, to focus entirely on the work because the work is the only thing that matters. 2 more hours crawl past. Time in the factory doesn't flow normally. It drags, each minute stretching out, the monotony somehow making everything both slower and faster simultaneously. You fall into a kind of trance, your hands working independently of conscious thought, your mind drifting to places that aren't here, that aren't this moment of noise and heat and danger. You think about the countryside, though you've never actually been there, only heard stories from older workers who remember a time before the factories. You think about space, about room to breathe, about air that doesn't clog your lungs and grass that isn't covered in coal dust. But the work continues, relentless as the tide, and your hands keep moving. Keep feeding the machine its cotton thread. Keep producing the cloth that will be sold for prices you can't imagine. Profits that will enrich men whose names you'll never know. Men who've never set foot on a factory floor, who've never breathed this air or felt this heat, or watched a coworker bleed out on the floor because the production schedule couldn't accommodate time for rescue. The morning shift grinds on, each minute purchased with pain and effort, each hour another marker on the long road to evening. The machines never tire. The machines never doubt. The machines simply consume cotton and labor and lives, transforming raw materials into finished goods with perfect mechanical indifference. And you're just another component in the system, as replaceable as any cog or pulley, worth exactly what the market will bear and not a penny more. Welcome to the industrial age, where progress is measured in yards of cloth and tons of steel, where human dignity is a luxury that working people can't afford, where every day is a test of endurance that you must pass or face consequences too terrible to contemplate. This is your life now. This is the world that modernity has built, and the morning has only just begun. The factory clock visible through the haze of cotton lint shows 10:30, though you've learned not to trust the factory clock entirely. Workers whisper that Mr. Pemberton, the factory manager, sometimes adjusts it, pushing the hands forward in the morning to squeeze out extra minutes and backward in the evening to delay quitting time. You can never prove it, and complaining would mean instant dismissal, so everyone just accepts it as another small theft in a system built on stealing time and health and futures from people with no power to resist. Your back is beginning to ache. That deep, persistent pain that starts in your lower spine and radiates upward. Standing in one position for hours does this. The human body not designed for such static postures. You shift your weight from foot to foot, trying to ease the pressure, but there's no comfortable position. The factory floor is hard wood, offering no cushion, and your thin boot soles provide minimal protection. By evening, your feet will be swollen, your calves cramping, your entire lower body screaming for rest that won't come until you've made the walk home and climbed the stairs to your family's room. A shuttle jams. You see it happening in that split second before impact, the thread catching wrong, the wooden shuttle cocking sideways in its race. You move without thinking, hands diving toward the machinery to clear the jam before the shuttle shatters or the loom tears itself apart. Your fingers find the tangled thread, pull it free, reset the shuttle into its proper track. The whole operation takes perhaps 3 seconds. 3 seconds during which your hands were inside the operational machinery, close enough to moving parts that a sneeze or stumble would have cost you fingers at minimum. But the alternative is a broken machine, lost production, and Crowther's wrath, which might cost you the job entirely. The near miss leaves your heart racing, adrenaline flooding your system, but you can't show fear. Fear is weakness, and weakness means replacement. So you take a breath, steady your hands, and continue working as if nothing happened, as if you didn't just risk permanent maiming for the sake of maintaining production. This is normal. This is every day. This is the wage you earn for your 3 shillings per week, paid not just in labor, but in constant proximity to injury and death. Thomas appears briefly, emerging from beneath a row of looms, his face streaked with dirt and cotton lint, his hair wild. He's dragging a sack nearly as large as himself, stuffed with waste cotton that he's been collecting from beneath the machinery. His eyes meet yours for just a moment, and you see exhaustion there that shouldn't exist in a 9-year-old boy. Childhood should be about play and learning and growth. Thomas's childhood is about survival, about developing the skills and calluses necessary to endure conditions that would have horrified your grandparents' generation. He disappears back under the looms, swallowed by the forest of machinery, and you force yourself to stop watching, to return your attention to your own work. Distraction kills. Inattention maims. The factory has taught you this lesson over and over, written it in scars and missing fingers and the names of workers who no longer answer roll call. You can't protect Thomas while he's under those looms. You can't protect anyone, including yourself. All you can do is work and hope and try to accumulate enough pay to justify the risks you're taking. The noise level suddenly changes, a subtle shift that experienced workers recognize immediately. One of the main drive shafts is making a grinding sound. Metal on metal, something wrong with the bearing. This is dangerous. A drive shaft failure can send leather belts whipping through the factory like massive whips, can cause machines to seize up or spin out of control, can kill or maim dozens of workers in seconds. But does anyone stop the machines? Does anyone call for emergency maintenance? Of course not. That would cost production time. Instead, someone pours grease into the bearing housing, a temporary fix that might last hours or might fail in minutes, and everyone returns to their positions, trying not to think about the lethal forces being barely contained above their heads. You need to use the privy. This is a problem. The factory has privies, of course, one for every 100 workers as required by law, but using them costs time, and time away from your machine is time not producing, time that might be noticed and noted and potentially docked from your pay. Workers have learned to hold it, to wait until the scheduled breaks, even though those breaks are brief and the privy lines are long. Some develop chronic bladder infections from this practice, another occupational hazard that's never mentioned in the newspapers that praise the factory system's efficiency. But the need becomes urgent, beyond what can be safely ignored, and you signal to Crowther that you need to leave your machine. He nods grudgingly, notes the time on a pocket watch he carries, making clear that you'll be expected to return quickly. You hurry toward the privy, weaving between machines, careful not to let your clothing come too close to any moving belts or gears. The path requires constant vigilance. Factory floors are obstacle courses of industrial hazards. The privy is exactly as terrible as you expected. It's a wooden structure built onto the back of the factory, basically a bench with holes cut in it, positioned over a brick-lined pit. The smell is overwhelming, a physical presence that makes breathing difficult. There's no paper, of course, and no running water for washing. You make use of the facility as quickly as possible, trying not to breathe, trying not to think about the diseases that breed in such places. Cholera loves shared privies. Typhoid thrives here, but there's no alternative. This is what's provided, and you use it or suffer worse consequences. Washing your hands is impossible. There's a single pump in the yard behind the factory, but it's for drinking water, and there's no soap anyway. You wipe your hands on your trousers, knowing that this is inadequate, knowing that you're about to return to handling thread and machinery with hands that aren't clean. But everyone does the same. The factory makes no provision for hygiene beyond the bare minimum required by law, which is itself barely enforced. You return to your machine having been gone perhaps 4 minutes. Crowther is waiting, watch in hand, face impassive. 4.5 minutes, he says. Noted. This means your pay will be docked, probably a penny, for time away from production. The fact that basic biological functions require time is irrelevant to the factory's accounting. Your body's needs are your problem, not theirs. And accommodating those needs costs you money, rather than being seen as a basic requirement of human dignity. Back at your loom, you discover that in your absence, a thread has broken. This happens, the constant vibration and tension eventually causing even the strongest thread to fail. But fixing it requires stopping the loom, rethreading the entire mechanism, and restarting the process. This will cost more production time, will be added to your growing list of inefficiencies, will be used to justify keeping your wages low because you're not as productive as you should be. Never mind that the broken thread wasn't your fault, that machines fail regardless of operator skill. In the factory's logic, all problems are worker problems. All solutions are worker responsibilities. You stop the loom, silence descending over your small section of the factory floor in a way that feels almost sacred after hours of noise. Your hands work quickly, muscle memory guiding them through the complex process of rethreading. You've done this hundreds of times, can practically do it blind at this point. The thread must be fed through a series of guides, each positioned precisely to maintain proper tension, then through the heddles, the metal loops that control the up and down motion of the warp threads, finally through the reed, the comb-like device that beats the weft thread into place. The entire process takes perhaps 5 minutes. 5 minutes during which Crowther watches with his arms crossed, his presence a constant reminder that you're being judged, that your performance is being measured against some impossible standard of perfection. When you restart the loom, the mechanism catches for just a moment, your heart stopping with it, but then it smooths out and begins its rhythmic work again. Crisis averted. Production resumed. Mary appears briefly, passing through the main factory floor on her way to the spinning room. Her face is flushed red from the heat, sweat soaking through her dress despite the coolness of the morning outside. She doesn't acknowledge you, can't acknowledge you, because personal interactions on the factory floor are discouraged. Family relationships are supposed to be left at the gate. Inside the factory, you're all just workers, interchangeable parts in the production machine. But you see her, confirm that she's still standing, still functioning, still alive. That will have to be enough. The injured man from earlier hasn't returned. This means the injury was serious enough to require amputation, or perhaps serious enough that he bled out in the surgery. You'll probably never know which. The factory doesn't announce worker deaths unless they happen in such spectacular fashion that silence would be suspicious. Individual deaths from injury or infection or blood loss are simply erased from the record. The worker disappears, a new worker appears in their place, and production continues without pause. Your mind drifts to money, to the arithmetic of survival that occupies so much mental space. 3 shillings per week for your labor. The room costs 1 shilling 6 pence weekly. Bread costs 6 pence for a loaf that lasts 2 days if stretched carefully. Coal for heating, when it can be afforded, costs 3 pence per scuttle. This means that your entire wage, before any deductions for lateness or bathroom breaks or damaged equipment, barely covers basic survival. New clothing is impossible. Medical care is fantasy. Any unexpected expense, a broken window, or urgent medicine or replacing worn boots requires borrowing at interest rates that would make a medieval moneylender blush. This is why entire families must work. Your 3 shillings, plus Thomas's 2 shillings, plus Mary's 3 shillings, plus your father's 5 shillings from the foundry, barely adds up to enough to keep you all alive. And even this assumes perfect health, no accidents, no dismissals, the machines of fate all turning in your favor simultaneously. 1 broken bone, 1 serious illness, 1 period of unemployment, and the whole careful balance collapses into debt and starvation and the workhouse's waiting jaws. The lunch whistle finally sounds, a blessed interruption in the day's grinding monotony. The looms don't stop, can't stop, but workers are released in shifts to eat, to rest briefly, to remember that they're human beings with needs beyond cloth production. Your shift is second, which means you must wait another 15 minutes while the first shift takes their break. This is strategic. If all workers stopped simultaneously, there would be time and space for conversation, for comparison of grievances, for the dangerous activity of organizing. So the breaks are staggered, workers kept isolated, prevented from forming the collective consciousness that might lead to demands for better treatment. When your turn comes, you step away from the loom with a relief so intense it's almost painful. Your muscles unlock from their fixed positions, your spine cracks as you straighten, your shoulders roll backward for the first time in hours. The 15-minute break will pass in a heartbeat, you know this. But for now, for just these precious moments, you're not working, not producing, not feeding the insatiable hunger of the machines. The break room, if it deserves such a grand name, is a corner of the factory floor separated by a low wall. There are no chairs, no tables, just floor space where workers can sit and eat. The space smells of unwashed bodies and the various foods people have brought, a mixture of cheap bread and cheaper cheese, and occasionally the luxury of a bit of meat that fills the air with aromas that make your empty stomach clench with desperate hunger. You find a spot on the floor, back against the wall, and open your tin pail. The bread inside looks exactly as unappetizing as it did this morning, the cheese even less appealing after hours in a warm factory. But it's food, calories, fuel for the afternoon ahead. You eat slowly, trying to make the portions last, trying to stretch the experience of eating into something approaching satisfaction. It doesn't work. You're still hungry when you finish, your stomach making its displeasure known, but there's nothing more. The pail is empty. The next meal won't come until evening, and even that will be inadequate. Around you, other workers are similarly engaged in the ritual of insufficient nutrition. A young girl, perhaps 7 years old, is eating what appears to be just bread, smeared with a thin layer of lard. That's her entire meal. She's so small she shouldn't be here at all, but the factory inspectors are rare and easily bribed, so children as young as 5 work the machinery, their tiny fingers perfect for reaching into spaces adults can't access. The girl catches you looking and immediately hunches over her food, protecting it with her body as if you might try to take it. This is what the factory does to people, turns them into creatures of pure survival, suspicious of everyone, trusting no one. Thomas appears, emerging from wherever the younger children take their break. He's somehow gotten dirtier in the past hours, his face now almost completely black with machine oil and cotton dust. He sits beside you without speaking, pulls out his own tin pail, extracts a portion of bread that's even smaller than yours. You watch him eat with the quick, darting motions of someone who's learned that food can disappear if you don't consume it quickly, that possessions in a crowded factory are always at risk of theft or confiscation. "How's it going, you ask, though the question is almost meaningless. How could it be going? He's 9 years old and crawling under operational machinery for 2 shillings a week. Fine, he says, because what else can he say? Complaining achieves nothing. Admitting struggle might be seen as weakness, might lead to dismissal. So everyone's always fine, always capable, always ready to work more hours for less pay under worse conditions. Mary doesn't appear during your break. Her schedule is different, her timing out of sync with yours and Thomas's. This is another way the factory keeps workers isolated, prevents family bonds from forming into collective resistance. You'll see her tonight, if you all survive until tonight, and that will have to be enough. The break ends far too quickly, 15 minutes that felt like 15 seconds, and the whistle calls you back to your machine. You heave yourself upright, joints protesting, muscles already exhausted from the morning's work. The afternoon stretches ahead, another 6 or 7 hours depending on whether they make you work overtime. There's no refusing overtime. If the foreman says you're needed, you stay, regardless of how you feel, regardless of your family waiting, regardless of anything except the factory's needs. Back at your loom, the afternoon shift begins in a haze of exhaustion and resignation. The morning was brutal, but at least you started fresh. Now you're tired, hungry, your body already pushed beyond comfortable limits, and there are still hours to go. This is when accidents happen, when attention wavers, when the machines find their opportunities to bite into human flesh. You know this. Everyone knows this. But knowing doesn't help when your eyelids are heavy and your mind keeps trying to drift to somewhere, anywhere, that isn't here. The afternoon heat is worse than the morning heat, the sun now beating down on the factory's roof, turning the interior into something like a brick oven. Sweat runs down your face, stings your eyes, soaks through your clothing. The cotton dust sticks to the moisture, creating a paste that coats your skin, gets into every crevice, itches maddeningly, but can't be scratched because your hands must stay on the machinery. This is hell, you think. Not the fire and brimstone kind, but something worse. something that stretches out endlessly, that offers no release, no redemption, just an eternal present of heat and noise and grinding, exhausting labor. Another hour passes, then another. Time loses meaning in the factory's eternal present. You exist in the moment, in the immediate demands of thread and shuttle and the constant threat of mechanical failure. The future is an abstract concept. The past is irrelevant. Only now matters. Only keeping the machine running. Only surviving until the final whistle blows, and you can escape back into a world that's hardly better, but at least doesn't require you to tend to a loom for hours on end. The fatigue is cumulative, building like compound interest, each hour adding to the debt your body owes. Your vision starts to blur at the edges, exhaustion playing tricks with perception. You shake your head, trying to clear it, force yourself to focus. The loom doesn't care if you're tired. The loom will keep running whether you're alert or not, and if your inattention causes a problem, the consequences will fall entirely on you. Not the factory owners who've pushed you to this point, not the system that treats human endurance as an infinite resource. Around mid-afternoon, Crowther makes an announcement. They need the looms running through the evening shift. Overtime is mandatory. A groan rises from the workers, quickly suppressed. Groaning is complaining, and complaining can get you dismissed. So everyone swallows their protest, adds another 3 or 4 hours to their already unbearable day, accepts that going home before dark is apparently too much to. Overtime means extra pay, technically. You'll make another 6 pence or so for the additional hours, but 6 pence doesn't compensate for the exhaustion, the missed meal at home, the time lost with family, the increasing likelihood of injury. As fatigue multiplies errors. Still, you have no choice. Refusing mandatory overtime means instant dismissal, and dismissal means starvation for your family. So you stay, you keep working, you push your body beyond what should be its breaking point. The drive shaft bearing that was grinding this morning finally fails with a shriek of tortured metal. The belt connected to it whips loose, slashing through the air like a giant snake, and workers dive for cover. The belt weighs perhaps 50 pounds, and it's moving at tremendous speed. If it hits someone, it will break bones, potentially kill. The belt crashes into machinery, shattering a loom, sending splinters of wood flying like shrapnel. Someone screams, the sound barely audible over the general din, and then it's over, the damaged machinery coming to a grinding halt, the belt hanging limp and dangerous. Miraculously, no one appears seriously injured. The scream was shock rather than pain. Workers slowly emerge from their defensive positions, checking themselves and each other for damage. Production on this section of the floor has stopped, several looms now idle, and Crowther is already calculating the losses, already figuring out how to spread blame among the workers, rather than acknowledging that inadequate maintenance caused the failure. The maintenance crew arrives, a group of men who are technically skilled but practically overwhelmed by the number of machines requiring constant attention. They begin the process of removing the damaged belt, installing a replacement, repairing the broken loom. This will take hours, which means the workers assigned to these machines will stand idle, not earning anything for this time, their day's wages reduced through no fault of their own. This is the factory's arithmetic at its most brutal. Workers bear all risk and reap none of the rewards. You're fortunate. Your machine is on a different drive shaft, so you keep working while the repairs proceed. But the incident has shaken everyone, provided a fresh reminder of how precarious everything is, how quickly disaster can strike. The machines are powerful and dangerous, and the only thing preventing constant catastrophe is constant vigilance from workers who are exhausted, underfed, and given minimal training. It's amazing that more people don't die, honestly. The only explanation is that human survival instinct is powerful, and workers learn through bitter experience how to read the machines, how to sense when something's wrong, how to stay alive in an environment designed with efficiency rather than safety in mind. Evening approaches, though you can't see the sun through the high, grimy windows. You know it's evening because the quality of light changes slightly, and because your body has learned to track time through sheer exhaustion. Your back is screaming now, pain radiating from your spine in waves that make concentration difficult. Your feet have swollen in your boots until the leather feels like iron shackles. Your hands move automatically, years of training allowing them to continue working even as your mind retreats into a kind of protective numbness. Thomas appears again, briefly, looking even worse than before. His small face is gray with fatigue, his eyes sunken. 9-year-olds shouldn't look like this, like old men worn down by decades of hard living. But childhood is a luxury that working-class families can't afford. Thomas became an adult the day he entered the factory, his youth sacrificed on the altar of family survival. You want to tell him it will get better, that someday things will change, but you can't lie to him. This is his life now. This is everyone's life, and no rescue is coming. The final whistle, when it comes, is the most beautiful sound in the world. The looms begin to power down, the noise level dropping for the first time in 14 hours. Your hands complete their final motions, and then you step back from the machine, legs trembling, vision swimming with exhaustion. Around you, other workers are doing the same, everyone moving in slow motion, bodies pushed far beyond reasonable limits. The walk to the time station is a shuffling march of the defeated. Griggs notes your departure time with the same mechanical precision he brought to the morning arrival. You've worked 14 hours today. Tomorrow you'll do it again. The day after that, same thing. 6 days a week, every week, until your body fails or the machines claim you, or some small miracle extracts you from this cycle. This is progress, the newspapers say. This is civilization. This is the modern world, efficient and productive, and utterly indifferent to the cost it exacts from those who build it with their bodies and blood and broken dreams. The factory gates close behind you, and you're free, or as free as someone who must return in 12 hours can ever be. The evening air feels cool on your face, though in truth, it's still warm and humid and thick with coal smoke. But compared to the factory's stifling interior, it's paradise. You breathe deeply, trying to clear your lungs of cotton dust, knowing that the attempt is futile, that the dust has already settled into tissues it will never leave. The walk home is a pilgrimage of exhaustion, your feet moving automatically while your mind drifts in a haze of fatigue. Other workers flow through the streets like ghosts, everyone too tired for conversation, too worn down for anything but putting one foot in front of the other. The city at dusk has its own character. The factories still running, their windows glowing like the eyes of watchful beasts, their smokestacks breathing dragon smoke into an already polluted sky. You pass a pub, the sound of rough laughter and drunken singing spilling out into the street. Some workers spend their evenings here, trading tomorrow's wages for tonight's oblivion. You understand the appeal. A few pints can make the pain fade, can provide a few hours where the factory doesn't exist, where you're not a machine operator, but just a person, laughing and forgetting and pretending life is something other than survival. But alcohol costs money you don't have, and showing up hungover means risking injury, means putting your job at risk, means endangering the whole careful balance that keeps your family housed and fed. A street preacher stands on a corner, Bible in hand, promising salvation and eternal rest to those who accept Jesus into their hearts. You've heard variations of this sermon 100 times. The churches love to preach to factory workers, love to explain that earthly suffering is temporary, while heavenly rewards are eternal. Convenient theology that encourages the poor to accept their lot, to not complain or organize or demand better conditions, because true fulfillment awaits in the afterlife. You keep walking. If God is watching, he seems remarkably unconcerned with factory conditions. Your street looks different in evening light, the shadows longer, the filth somehow more obvious. During the morning rush, everyone's too busy to notice the garbage piled in corners, the sewage running down gutters, the general state of decay that characterizes working-class neighborhoods. But in the evening, it's all visible, all undeniable. This is where the people who make society's wealth actually live, in squalor and darkness and shared misery. The courtyard is busy with families returning from various shifts, everyone navigating the shared space with practiced efficiency. The privy reeks even worse than usual, the day's accumulation combining with unseasonable heat to create an aroma that's almost visible. You avoid it, having emptied your bladder at the factory before leaving, planning to hold it until morning rather than face that particular nightmare again today. Your family's room is exactly as you left it this morning, which is to say, cramped and damp and depressing. But it's home, such as it is, the only space in this vast city that's even theoretically yours. Your father is back, collapsed on the bed still wearing his work clothes, his face so covered in foundry grime that you can barely recognize him. He's too exhausted to wash, too worn down to even remove his boots. This is becoming more common, his shifts stretching longer, his recovery time shrinking, his body being consumed by the foundry the same way your body is being consumed by the textile mill. Your mother has managed a fire in the grate, a small miracle given the cost of coal. She's cooking something in a battered pot, and the smell is actually appetizing for once. You peer into the pot and see potatoes, a few chunks of something that might be turnip, a bone with scraps of meat still clinging to it. This is luxury by your standards, an actual hot meal with protein, however minimal. Found a butcher selling bones cheap, your mother explains. End of day, he was going to throw them away. Got 3 for a penny. She's proud of this economy, the successful navigation of the constant challenge of stretching inadequate funds to cover basic needs. The bones have been boiled until whatever meat was on them has surrendered to the water, creating a thin stew that will be divided among 6 people and will leave everyone still hungry, but at least provide some nutrition and warmth. Thomas arrives next, so filthy he's almost unrecognizable. Your mother gasps when she sees him, immediately begins scolding him about getting clean before he sits anywhere. There's barely enough water to cook with, let alone wash in, but she fetches a rag and a bowl and begins scrubbing at his face with a determination that borders on violence. Thomas endures this with the patience of someone who's learned that resistance is futile, his face emerging from beneath the layers of grime pale and pinched with exhaustion. Mary appears last, her factory shift having run longer than yours, and she looks worst of all. Her face is flushed bright red, her dress soaked through with sweat, her hair hanging in damp strings. She all but collapses onto the floor, her legs no longer able to support her weight. Your mother immediately goes to her, checking for signs of heat stroke or worse. The spinning rooms claim workers regularly, girls simply dropping where they stand, their bodies unable to continue functioning in the extreme temperatures. I'm fine, Mary insists, though she clearly isn't. Just tired. The stew is ready, such as it is, and your mother ladles it into bowls with the careful precision of someone dividing resources that are critically scarce. Each portion is slightly different, calibrated to perceived need. Your father gets the most because his work at the foundry is the most physically demanding and his wages the highest. You, Thomas, and Mary get slightly smaller portions. Your mother takes the least, a pattern you've noticed over the years, her own needs always coming last. This is the mathematics of poverty, where even within families, food must be allocated strategically. The stew is hot, and that alone makes it valuable. The potatoes are soft, breaking apart in your mouth, providing the kind of solid sustenance you've been craving all day. The meat scraps are few and tough, requiring serious chewing to extract any nutritional value, but they're there, proof that this meal isn't just carbohydrates and water. You eat slowly, trying to savor it, trying to make the experience last, knowing that tomorrow will bring the same inadequate breakfast and the same insufficient lunch. Conversation at the meal is minimal. Everyone's too tired for extended discussion. Your father reports that the foundry is speeding up production again, the owners pushing for more output without additional workers or better equipment. This means longer shifts, greater danger, more exhaustion. Your mother shares news from the neighborhood: who's sick, who's been evicted, who's died. The litany of small tragedies is so common, it barely registers as tragic anymore. This is just life, just the expected toll of existing at the bottom of society's hierarchy. After the meal, there's a brief period of rest before sleep. Your father has fallen back onto the bed, already unconscious, his snoring a constant rumble that rattles the thin walls. Your mother begins the process of preparing for tomorrow, checking that there's bread for breakfast, ensuring that your work clothes are in acceptable condition, performing the 1,000 small tasks that make family survival possible. She never stops working, you realize. From the moment she wakes until she collapses at night, she's in motion, managing a household on resources that shouldn't be manageable, stretching pennies until they scream, keeping you all alive through sheer force of will. Thomas is already asleep, curled up on his section of floor, his small body twitching occasionally, as whatever dreams children have when they spend their days crawling under machinery play out behind his closed eyes. You wonder what he dreams about, whether he has fantasies of escape or whether the factory has invaded even his unconscious mind, turning his dreams into extensions of his waking nightmare. Mary sits with her back against the wall, eyes open but unfocused, staring at nothing. You sit beside her, shoulders touching, the simple physical contact providing comfort that words never could. Neither of you speaks. What would you say? That you're proud she survived another day? That you hope tomorrow will be different even though you know it won't? That you love her, which is true but insufficient, in the face of the grinding brutality you both endure? The candle is burning low, wax dripping down its side in tears that mirror the ones you refuse to shed. Crying achieves nothing, solves no problems, just wastes energy you'll need tomorrow. So you sit in the dimming light, feeling your body slowly begin to relax after 14 hours of constant tension. Your muscles ache with a deep, bone-deep pain that you know won't fully dissipate before morning comes, and you have to do it all again. Outside, you can hear the city settling into its nighttime routine. The factories run around the clock in shifts, so the noise never truly stops, just modulates, changing in quality as different machines take precedence. Somewhere nearby, a baby is crying, the sound thin and desperate. Somewhere farther away, a couple is arguing, voices raised in anger that's really just exhaustion and frustration finding an outlet. This is the soundtrack of working-class life, punctuated by coughing and cursing and the occasional scream of someone whose pain can no longer be contained. Your mother finally sits, her day's work concluded, at least until tomorrow begins. She looks ancient in the candlelight, her face lined with worry and hard living, her hands cracked and worn from constant work. She's 32, but looks 50, her youth consumed by the demands of keeping a family alive on wages that barely qualify as wages. She married your father with dreams, you imagine, hopes for something better, some vision of a life that included more than this. Those dreams are long dead, ground down by the relentless pressure of poverty, until nothing remains but the base determination to survive. Time for sleep, she says softly, and everyone begins the ritual of preparing for bed, which mostly involves lying down where you were already sitting. There's no changing into night clothes. You own what you're wearing and maybe one other set of clothing total. You'll sleep in your work clothes, wake in your work clothes, work in your work clothes until they literally fall apart and must be replaced with clothes that aren't much better. The candle is snuffed, darkness descending like a curtain, complete and absolute. In the country, night brings stars and moon, the gentle light of nature unobscured by smoke and buildings. Here, night brings nothing but darkness, thick and suffocating, pressing in from all sides. You lie on your mattress, feeling every lump and thin spot, your body slowly unwinding from the day's tension, even as your mind continues racing. Sleep should come easily given your exhaustion, but it doesn't. Your body hurts too much, your mind too full of worry and calculation. Will you be fast enough tomorrow? Will your machine operate smoothly? Will Thomas avoid injury? Will Mary survive another day in that hellish spinning room? Will your father make it home from the foundry? Will there be enough money for rent, for food, for coal? The questions spiral endlessly, each one leading to another, creating chains of anxiety that no amount of exhaustion can break. You think about the man whose hand was injured today. Wonder if he's alive. Wonder if his family knows yet what happened. Wonder who will pay for his medical care. Wonder if he has children who will now have to work even younger and longer to compensate for his lost wages. The factory owners don't wonder these things. They've already replaced him, moved on. Their concern extending only to production numbers and profit margins. Human suffering is externalized, pushed out of their awareness, made someone else's problem. You think about the life you're living, about whether this is all there is, whether you'll die at 35 of respiratory failure, or be crushed by machinery before then, or simply wear away like water on stone, each day taking a little more until there's nothing left. The socialists have a newspaper they distribute secretly, talking about workers' rights and unions and revolution. You've read it once, the words stirring something in you that felt dangerous, felt like hope. But hope is a luxury you can't afford. Organization means risking your job. Striking means starvation. Revolution means dying in the streets while the factory owners call in the military. So you do nothing, you survive. You accept this as the price of existence. The darkness is complete now, the silence broken only by breathing and the occasional cough and the constant background rumble of the city's industrial heart beating through the night. Your father's snoring has settled into a rhythm. Your mother's breathing has slowed to the pace of sleep. Thomas and Mary have both succumbed to exhaustion. You're the last one awake, holding vigil over this small family, in this small room, in this vast, uncaring city. Tomorrow will be the same as today. The knocker-upper will tap at the window. You'll wake in the cold and darkness. You'll choke down inadequate breakfast. You'll walk to the factory through streets that reek of poverty and industry. You'll work 14 hours in heat and noise and danger. You'll come home exhausted and hurt and barely alive. You'll eat too little. You'll sleep poorly. And then you'll do it all again. This is your life now. This is the world that progress is built, where efficiency is measured in cloth produced and profits extracted, where human beings are reduced to labor units, valued only for their ability to tend machines and create wealth for people who will never know their names. The newspapers celebrate the industrial age, talk about advancement and civilization and the march of modernity. But they don't talk about this, about the broken bodies and shattered dreams and slow death of hope that powers their celebrated factories. Your eyes finally grow heavy. Exhaustion is winning its nightly battle with anxiety, pulling you down towards sleep, despite your body's protests. You surrender to it, letting consciousness slip away, falling into darkness that's somehow better than the darkness of waking life. Because at least in sleep, you might dream of something different, something better. Some world where work doesn't consume everything, where bodies aren't used up and discarded, where tomorrow holds promise rather than just more of the same. The last thing you hear before sleep claims you is the factory whistle in the distance, calling the night shift to their labors, reminding you that the machines never sleep, never stop, never show mercy. In 12 hours, that whistle will call for you again. You'll answer because you have no choice. You'll return to your loom, to your position as a cog in the great industrial machine. You'll work until your body breaks, or the system changes, or death provides the only escape available to people in your position. This is the 19th century. This is the Industrial Revolution. This is progress, measured in suffering, built on broken backs, celebrated by people who never have to see the cost. Welcome to a day in the life of a factory worker. Welcome to the truth behind the prosperity. Welcome to the reality that history books often gloss over in their rush to celebrate technological advancement and economic growth. And tomorrow, when that knocker-upper's tap echoes through the pre-dawn darkness, it begins again. If you found this journey through industrial history compelling, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the lives of ordinary people throughout history. We tell the stories that textbooks forget, the human experiences behind the historical headlines. Drop a comment below about what period or profession you'd like to see next. Until then, may your work be fulfilling, your rest be peaceful, and your life be filled with choices that 19th century factory workers could never imagine. Good night, and remember, the comforts and protections we enjoy today were paid for with the struggles of those who came before, who endured conditions we can barely fathom, to build a world where such conditions would one day be illegal, immoral, and rightly remembered with horror. Their struggle matters. Their suffering meant something. And we honor them by never forgetting what it truly cost to build the modern world.